did you get a sense of what the writer was like?
Come on, let's make sure that everything was like one syllable though.
Okay, when?
The biggest challenge in planning an effectively differentiated classroom is probably the challenge of change. There's almost nothing in doing a differentiated classroom that good teachers aren't capable of. The hardest part is changing what we have done in order to move to something new.
How do you go beyond a single differentiated lesson to build a differentiated classroom? In this program, Carol Tomlinson helps us examine how differentiation works in a classroom over a period of time. We'll explore such considerations as where to start in planning a differentiated unit, how to get a better match between students and activities, how to create an environment for learning, how to encourage and allow all students to grow, and how to meet students' diverse needs. Rick Wormley teaches middle school English in Herndon, Virginia. We'll gain a perspective on what a differentiated classroom looks like over time by visiting 4 class sessions occurring at various intervals during a unit spanning over a month of instruction. Rick's classroom reflects a complex curriculum because as he designs units, he first considers the more advanced students and then differentiates to help other students achieve those complex goals.
Welcome to our very first day of a brand new unit.
Assessing where students are helps you to match appropriate activities to their needs.
Once a class has been together for a brief period of time, the teacher begins to develop a sense, for example, of the span of reading abilities or comprehension abilities, for things like attention span, for passions that students have for particular things, and for dislikes that students have. And so the teacher can make large, proactive, upfront plans for differentiation based just on a general sense of the class, and then can continue to refine plans by informal and formal assessment of students as the unit goes on. It's important for a teacher to pre-assess where students are as a unit begins. I think many of us maybe aren't taught to do that, but if we really understood what some students' learning gaps were, and if we understood that other students know as much as we plan to teach about the unit, it would give us some great clues on how we might adjust our teaching.
Well, I had to figure out where students were regarding those essential understandings for this particular unit. So I did a pre-assessment about 2 weeks ago. And the pre-assessment for this unit was 3 questions. First, what is writer's voice? They could define it any way they wanted. Second, give me an example of something that is written with strong writer's voice. And third, what is it that makes this a strong writer's voice? And I was shocked by some of the advanced thinking that was going on the part of this smaller group, this down the road group I call. They're really on their way. And the group that was more introductory, a lot of them wrote, I don't have a clue what you're talking about, Mr. Wormley. I'm going to need everything in this unit. But I have to tell you that these groups are really going to be flowing back and forth. Now, what does that mean?
Can I go over to that group? When I wrote that thing, I didn't really know what it was about actually, but you seemed to like my answer.
Guys,
I sort of get this, but I'm not quite sure if I am.
I want to push you beyond your comfort level, Thomas, because I've seen things this year that make me crack up about some of your writing. You are very, very clever. You have a very strong voice. In addition, what you wrote in the pre-assessment was pretty much right where you needed to be somebody who's showing this experience. So I'm going to say no. If you find, after a couple of lessons, that you still would like to move over there, I will let you go, okay? Take a chance.
I plan to use some scaffolding there to help that boy who was a little bit uncomfortable in that advanced group.
Today was our introductory day, but I want you to begin with the end in mind. Where are we going with this? All of us working together at different points of entry, but eventually coming up in about 4 weeks with some basic understandings about writer's voice. Our goals, you will understand that voice is the writer revealed, that there are specific tools to create voice.
While pre-assessment gives you a starting point for knowing where students are, daily assessment is equally important.
Daily assessment in a differentiated classroom should be the compass of daily planning. At the outset of a unit, of course, the teacher has a sense of where the class needs to go, lengths of time available, and preferred routes for getting there. But it's a better classroom when the teacher doesn't forge ahead with those plans without regard to what's happening with the learners. So a teacher in a differentiated classroom is continually checking the weather both of the classroom and of individual learners to say, here's what I now need to do with my general plan to make it more specific, better refined, to accomplish what we really needed to accomplish.
One way to assess where students are on an everyday basis can occur during lesson closure.
Now, let's close with a 3-2-1 summary. Write a 3, skip a space, a 2, skip a space, then a 1 with your name and date on it. And here is your exit card out. Let's begin. 3 things you've learned about voice today, about writer's voice.
I found that the students actually learn more if I stop and do a summarization activity for 6, 7, 8 minutes than if I try to fit in that nth degree of content and push ahead. So I will take those summarizations, I will reflect on them and see where I need to go.
2 comments about your own voice as a writer.
The 3-2-1 idea is very flexible.
Do you have one?
And of course, that's designed for me to see where they want to go with this. What's really going to meet their need? What didn't get across today? The exit cards have indicated to me a number of new directions that I need to go. For instance, the idea of how do you get voice in information writing? Do we have more than one voice? How do we write for different audiences?
Thank you.
Those are all wonderful, wonderful questions, and I thought they might be tangential thoughts or subsets of what we're going to do, but I'm raising them in importance because of what I've heard today. So I am going to change what I do in my next lesson based on what they've shared with me on their exit card.
Thank you very much. We have slightly different goals for the day, some understandings I'd like you to know. First, there are specific tools to create strong voice. In particular today, we'll be looking at word choice and sentence variety. Second, voice takes time to develop. I'm hoping that you'll see that it's not something you get intuitively, instantly, right away. Now to start things off, to get the juices flowing, here's the sentence I'd like you to write. You have to be clever to survive middle school. You have 3 minutes to write down this sentence, to restate it in as many possible ways without changing its truth. Okay, let's stop the sentence you're on. Everybody wrap up the one they're on, it's fine. And I'm going to ask every table group to kind of divide in half, unless you have a threesome, and then the 3 of you can stay together. And what I want you to do is real quickly share your lists. And between the 2 or the 3 of you, come up with the most unique one. Can you do that? Let's get started right now. We've got about 2 minutes to do this.
It's important in any classroom to create a sense of community. It's awfully hard to imagine why students would want to learn in a place where they feel unwelcomed or rejected or seen as odd or inconvenient.
A sense of community in my classroom is probably one of the greatest things I can give the kids, because it is in community that they learn so much. They have to trust, and you can't trust unless you have a sense of community.
You have to be quick-witted and smart. Middle school isn't just a stroll in the park.
Okay, eyes back up here. Let's hear from you, and what I'd like the class to do is say, hey, did they maintain the truth of the sentence?
You have to be cunning to endure junior high.
They chose to use synonyms to restate it. That's very good. Another group that would like to do theirs. Okay, Jesse?
In order to succeed in middle school, you must be witty and on your toes.
It's a bit of slang, be on your toes.
You shall not survive middle school unless you are a powerful brainchild with an iron wit.
That sounds like writer's voice coming through. Attitude.
Ladies and gentlemen, all of these have changed in subtle ways. The successful writer is someone who plays with the sentence.
Just from the standpoint of human learning, it's very important to have the student feel welcomed. But in a differentiated classroom, a sense of community is even more important. Often in classrooms, there's a great deal of competition. Who's better? Who's smarter? It's important in a differentiated classroom for teachers and students to come to understand that everybody has a responsibility to grow, and that growth is what needs to be celebrated, and that an individual who grows has done a good thing. That's true whether it's high school calculus or kindergarten coloring inside the lines.
You had an assignment from a number of days ago in which you were to do one of two tasks, and that was to write about an event and 3 different inanimate objects' point of view of that event. And also, one group was going to do a narrative or speech from a particular celebrity. And underneath each one, you were supposed to write an analysis on what you did. How did you create that writer's voice? First, Matt Winchell. Where are you, Matt? You did a really excellent job in your analysis. Let's listen to his analysis. He wrote about a conversation between a boat engine, the wheel, and a light bulb.
Well, with each one of the lessons, I want to reinforce that sense of community among the learners in the class. With this age group, it's particularly important that they feel safe and secure. That's paramount to them.
These things are trying to decide who is better. The light bulb is the mediator who's desperately trying to end his conversation. And here's what you wrote. Now, go ahead and just do your analysis part.
I wanted a character who seemed grumpy and conceited. The engine was a perfect choice. Most people portray engines to be big and tough. Some big and tough people are also considered grumpy and conceited. The light bulb is most like me. I like to resolve matters quickly but in a fair way. The light bulb's paragraph is longer because he's trying to convince the engine that the wheel was right in the fact that every part of the boat is equal. The wheel is the timid object. He doesn't really like to share his answers in fear of being made fun of, but when he does, he's normally right.
So in other words, Matt let me inside his mind as he was making decisions. This is the commentary we want to see.
In building community in a differentiated classroom, I think it's key for the teacher to come to find every student fascinating and worthwhile. We often don't have time to communicate overtly as clearly as we communicate subtly to students. And that sense that the teacher has great respect and regard for the possibilities for every student in that classroom is a very, very loud message.
Now here's what I'd like you to do in your groups. I'd like you to choose just 2 people. And I'd like that person to share what they wrote and their analysis. I'd like you to help them identify the tools they used to make it work. Let's get to it. You've got about 8 minutes or so. Go.
I make a conscious effort every single quarter to affirm every single one of my students in some way. For instance, Matt, who was always so quiet in class, to have his piece be the one chosen as excellence made other students see him now as someone to go to for help, someone with whom they want to work in a group. Because, boy, Matt's got it right. I want to be with success.
Yeah, just like say why one paragraph is longer than the other. Okay. Is it because people don't want to talk more, or is it because they feel more important than the other parts, or stuff like that?
It's also important in a differentiated classroom for teachers to build a sense of community because the teacher will no longer be the central control agent in the classroom. And students have to learn when to help each other and when not to, how to help each other effectively, how to get help from the teacher, how to enforce some of the classroom customs or rules or values.
So to publicly recognize that and to redirect students to one another and seek each other's advice, have that collaborative sense, I think created a sense of we're all in this together, we're all have equal share in making it successful. That creates a community in the classroom.
Let's switch now to our second activity to get the juices flowing about writer's voice. Here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to write about a moment from one of 3 areas.